Hey everybody, it's Peter and I'm here in a packed secondary showroom of the largest volume Kawasaki dealer in the country. So what we're looking at today is two 2025 dual sport / adventure motorcycles. This is the 2025 KLR 650. That is the 2025 KLX 300. Now again, filming here, largest volume Kawasaki dealer in the country. This is Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals, Jim Gilbert's Power Sports. In this video, I'm going to start off right off the top. These bikes essentially unchanged for 2025. So the one thing I'm going to talk about between these two bikes is why would you buy them in 2025 and should you jump from one to the other, some of the advantages between the two. So in the past, you guys have asked me to compare a KLR to a KLX. There are some unique differences that the other videos aren't showing. That's what I'm going to try to show in this video. But I'm also going to talk about these bikes in the context of right now, 2025 motorcycles, and sort of compare them to where other bikes are at and help you decide if they're best for you. So let's get going with that review right now. So the first thing we have to talk about with these bikes is if you haven't been following them model year by model year, there have been some tweaks and updates since they sort of launched. This one, of course, relaunched itself around 2021 or so, LED headlights, fairing, all kinds of stuff. This KLX, a little bit less up to date. If you're a little bit less up to date on it, I don't blame you at all because it really doesn't look a whole lot different. They tweaked some styling back in the year or so ago, and they've added an LED headlight to it as well. So both of these now have LED headlights. That's great for bikes like this because if you drop them, they're a little bit more durable as far as the filament and the bulb and that. Well, there is no filament, but in the bulbs, that kind of thing. And the styling is more up to date to some people. To me, I don't think the casual user is going to notice a whole lot of styling difference, but if you are a real dirt bike / dual sport / adventure bike aficionado, you may notice a few of the changes in these two. Now, the other thing worth noting is, again, I'm filming here in Canada, but this bike and this bike are roughly $1,000 apart. So a lot of people assume this is a lot cheaper than this one, and because it's smaller, they think, it's going to be a lot of difference. For some people, they come in looking for this and they leave with that. Other people want this kind of bike, but this suits them better for their uses. So that's part of what we're going to talk about in this review. But let's just start by taking a general quick overview of what these bikes are all about. So quickly overviewing everything, this is the front wheel of the KLX 300, and if you see my videos before, I love to start at the front wheel because it tells you the manufacturer's intent for the bike. Now, you see that this, of course, is built to a price point. It's got to compete within the class, but there is something nice here. You do have the upside-down suspension fork here, so that's, again, a little bit higher quality, gives you a little more stiffness up top, gives you a little bit less unsprung weight. There are some advantages there. The biggest thing is it's not adjustable, but it's known within the class up to this point to having sort of the firm enough suspension to really ride the way you would want to ride, unless you're going into pro riding and then you'd want to firm it up. But it's not as soft, so it doesn't have that same showroom or parking lot soft ride that some of the other competitors have had in the past, although there are updates within the competition as well. But it doesn't have that soft parking lot ride. It has that capable suspension that you're going to need to ride off-road. Again, no adjustments here, so you still know it's built to a price. But the other thing you have here is stock rubber that is fine. Anything in the class is going to have fine tires. They're nothing spectacular, but they're going to work well for what this bike is designed for, which is partially on-road, partially off-road. Now, most people who are buying this bike are going to spend a whole lot of time off-road. In my mind, you're buying this bike because you want to only go on the road if you have to. You want to get off-road, and in that case, you may want to get a little bit better off-road tires. But these are going to be a good mix for on- and off-road tires right off the showroom floor. You can wear them out, do your thing, but you may find if you're spending a ton of time off-road that you may want to upgrade them. So that's something to keep in mind depending on your riding style. So what you see here is standard brakes, no ABS. A lot of people don't want ABS on the off-road trail, so no ABS. Again, as you move up in price range in different bikes, you can get switchable ABS, but this still keeps you in a price range where you just get no ABS, which is the way a lot of people like it. So that's this front wheel. 21 in the front, 18 in the rear. The tire sizes on that are the common dirt bike tire sizes. You can fit just about anything you want to it. One thing to remember, if you're swapping out tires, you do want to stay with a road-rated tire because some of the off-road tires are not made to be on the road, and you will have handling issues, and you'll just have issues if somebody ever inspects your bike. It won't be road-legal tires. So something to keep in mind. There's plenty of road-legal tires that are great off-road as well, but that's the front wheel here. Let's quickly compare it to the KLR. One thing to know with the KLR is the KLR for the most part, is just more bike. So when you get more bike and you only price it at roughly $1,000 Canadian more than the KLX, you're gonna have to make some compromises somewhere, and this is where the KLR makes some compromises. No upside down forks here, pretty basic stuff. You got the old style rubber sleeves there to keep everything protected. You have a 21-inch front wheel as well. I'd say the same thing about the tires. Again, this bike's probably gonna spend a little more time on the road than maybe the KLX, but again, it's a mixed tire. It's gonna do fine for that mixed stuff, but if you're gonna spend a lot of time off-road, some people may want to upgrade, you may not. Difference with the brakes here. The brakes, of course, the other ones were pedal style. These ones are just sort of the circular rotor. Kawasaki is moving away from that pedal style rotor with the edges that have, they look like a pedal, to this round rotor again. So they went to those pedal rotors, moved back. KLR's got those. This one has the option of ABS. Now, I don't normally talk about pricing in these videos. I let you check out the link in the description to see all the pricing, but it's one of the cheapest upgrades to ABS on this bike, which is a $300 upgrade. Well worth it, in my opinion, if you're going to be spending some time on roads. I think ABS is good. I don't think you're going to need to switch it off on this bike for the most part, but again, if you're that kind of rider, you could probably pull a fuse. I'm not really sure. So you've got ABS, 21-inch front wheel. Interestingly, this one has a 17-inch rear wheel instead of the 18-inch that the KLX has, so a little bit smaller rear wheel. Let's quickly talk engines and guards and that kind of thing, and then we'll move on to some other key differences. One similarity between both these bikes, they are both single-cylinder bikes, so they are thumpers. Single-cylinder, simple maintenance. This one is water-cooled, as is the KLR. You can move down to the 230 KLX, which is an air-cooled engine, but water-cooled gets you a little bit more performance out of this and just a little consistency in the temperature. So you have a single-cylinder, everything's highly mounted. Again, no fuel filters hanging down low. This is a true off-road bike right from the beginning, so sometimes you have those fuel filters sitting down here when it's a road bike and that kind of thing. They try to cover it up with whatever, but you can see the frame wraps underneath here, so you don't really need to put a bash plate on there, although obviously you could, but you've got some protection there. The other thing you're going to notice is the brake pedal or the brake lever here, brake pedal, and the foot pegs here. They are no rubber padding in there. They are made to take your muddy feet just the way they are. Not a lot of extras in there that you would make a compromise for on a road bike, like rubber padding or something like that. So simple stuff, simple maintenance, really reliable. Highway speed capable, yes, but you're really only going to want to go highway speeds to get to the next trail or to get to the next side road on this 300cc single cylinder. Just 296cc or so, it's just under 300cc. Let's move over to the KLR where things change a little bit. So taking a look at the KLR, first thing you're going to notice is a lot more bodywork, a lot more adventure styling here. Now that bodywork is going to cover a lot larger tank. This is like a 21-liter tank or so, I think 23, 21, somewhere in there. Large tank, and that's a lot of what allows you to do that real adventuring, that real long distance away from everything kind of traveling. The tank to me is the biggest thing, and the seat are the biggest things that keep the KLX from being a lightweight adventure bike. It's just not going to go as far, it's not going to be as comfortable. We'll talk about that in a second, but we were talking engine here. Not a lot has changed in here over the years. The KLR was first introduced in like the 80s. It's been slightly updated. It has fuel, fuel injection now, but a lot of this is same technology. This is an engine, they don't work very hard, and it's proven to be pretty reliable for years and years, but it's not going to be peak performance 650cc. A lot of people think this is the same 650 as in the Ninja 650 or the Versa 650. That's not the case. This is a single cylinder, so again, style-wise, it's very similar, but even though it's a heavier bike, it's going to give you a little bit more highway-capable power if you want. Where this bike's going to shine those in those 80 kilometer an hour, 50 kilometer an hour, or 50 mile per hour speed limits, where you're going to go, in and around that speed limit, a little bit more than that. That's where this is going to be great on the road, and so will the other one. If you have to travel on the highway, this one can do it all day, but it is a thumper as well, so you're going to feel some of that vibrations. Part of this is just feeling what it's like to be on that motorcycle. The other thing you have here, thick rubber pads down here on the foot peg, so again, a little bit more highway-oriented idea here. Now let's take a look with me sitting on them, because there's a couple things to point out sitting on these bikes. So sitting on these bikes, they're both set up to have a high seat height. They need high ground clearance to go off-road. This one's 35.2 inches. This is 0.9 inches lower, but you're gonna see a difference here, I'm pretty sure. So let's do the jump on here. First of all, I'm about 6 feet tall, proportional 6-footer, and right now, if I put the kickstand out of the way, I can almost flat foot it. Yep, I can flat foot it, just heels on the ground. Not a lot of weight on my heels, but I can. And that is because this is a very narrow bike. Narrow and playful is really what you need to think about with this bike. It is not the most comfortable seat for a long tour. It's not terrible, but it's probably the least comfortable on-road Kawasaki seat they have right now. That doesn't matter because you're going to be standing and riding a lot on this bike. When you sit on it, it's totally fine. Like, it's just going to get you from where you need to go. If you wanted to put an aftermarket seat on this to get a little more comfort, you could, but again, that brings you a little closer to that. So you have to decide, is this something I want to modify into more of a touring style bike, or am I perfectly happy with it being a playful dirt bike that's road legal? That's where you are on this one. So let's put that long kickstand down, lean it over just a little bit here, because that's sort of how it sits there. And you can see the bike raises off its suspension when I get off. So it looks higher in the showroom than it feels when you jump on it. Now the KLR has a dip in the seat here. It is a much softer seat, much more comfortable. It's a much heavier bike as well, especially when it's full of fuel. Generally speaking, it's a heavier bike, but it does feel, I can't at all get my heels to the ground. Even though it's just like about an inch difference, there is no way, even to put the kickstand out of the way, that I can kind of reach and get both heels on the ground. So even though this is a little bit different, I think it's supposed to be a little bit lower in height, you have to sit on a bike to tell the seat height. Seat height in inches means nothing. It's the width, it's the way your body works as well with it. So this feels like a taller bike, but the KLR has an option. It has a KLR S model. That's a shorter version. It's a factory lowered suspension. Now you're gonna wanna buy that new rather than trying to buy an aftermarket or used bike and then swap out the suspension. Because if you think about it, let's say you were to buy this bike and swap out the suspension. Well, you've paid for this suspension and then you got to pay for lowering kits. This one has a factory option, so you're not paying extra. You just get a lower bike from the factory, which is a little bit less suspension travel and a little bit more of a scoop out in the seat here. But basically all the regular KLR accessories are going to bolt onto the lower version or this version. This happens to be the taller version. It's going to give you the most ground clearance. Now, if I had to sit on one all day, there are some key differences here. First of all, handguards, standard. Nothing that's going to be like super durable. They don't come back to here, so some people want to upgrade them if they're going on like really heavy duty stuff, but you get the handguards standard. You're going to have we'll show you the dash difference. There's a surprising difference in the dash in a second, but you're going to have a adjustable windshield. Now I say adjustable, it's adjustable only with tools, so you can move it up or down in one of two positions, but you have to use tools. You do have a place to mount GPSs up here. You have a lot of areas where you can wire in and switches and wiring for lights, 12 volt or a USB cord. All of that is Kawasaki accessories, or if you go with the adventure model of this, you can get all that stuff included. So again, much more adventure orientated, but a little bit less playful in sort of general off-road use. So let's keep coming through. Let's move you to the dash now, because like I said, there's a couple surprising things about this bike and that bike that you wouldn't suspect. So staying with the KLR, you can see a lot going on here. First of all, this is hard plastic on the adventure model. This is a rubber thing. You can peel that up and put a 12 volt port in the adventure model. Here it's an accessory. Same thing here. This would be switches for driving lights on the adventure model. You can wire that in. You can get that as a Kawasaki accessory. Same thing here. You can put a 12 volt port in there, and the generator on this bike has been stepped up to handle more accessories than in past generations. So you do have some capability of putting something like a GPS or something like that on this little bar here. But one little surprising piece to me is as we zoom into the dash here, you're going to kind of see that there's a very similar but not identical dash in this bike. So we're going to turn it on. First thing you're going to do is look in this little side right here, right where my finger's pointing. Look there as I turn it on, because I want to show you right there. It shows you what's inside that little box. That is a battery warning there. A lot of people think it should have a shift or a gear position indicator. It does not have a gear position indicator in there. That's one of those showroom mistakes people make. They think, oh, they must have it there, but it does not. What you're seeing in this dash is essentially what you get. So you may notice fuel gauge, no temperature gauge, just a temperature light. And we cycle through, we've got trip A, trip B, back to the odometer, and that's it. So not a lot of functions in this dash, and surprisingly for me, no tachometer. It's never had a tachometer. I think it should, but it doesn't, and that's fine. Now moving to the KLX, you'll see a little difference. Moving over to the KLX 300, we'll turn that dash on. You can see a lot less around here. Gives that more lightweight feeling, but also lightweight reality. So as we zoom right into the dash here, you're gonna see a similar dash, right? You have odometer over here, which we can cycle through the mode. You have odometer, trip A, trip B, and odometer. So that's the exact thing. You have a clock over here. You have a speedometer there. There's battery lights and other type of things, temperature lights, so there's no temperature gauge, but you do have a tachometer, 10,500 RPM red line. And to me, that's something that the KLR should have. Now, there is a difference. We talked about gear position indicators. This one doesn't have a gear position indicator either, but there's a difference in gearing. You have 6 speeds on this bike and you have 5 speeds on the KLR. That's something to keep in mind. You're going to always be in the rev range of this sort of peppy little engine, whereas the KLR, it's a little bit more taller geared and set up for more touring, cruising, that kind of thing. And it's only a 5-speed transmission. So some people would like a 6-speed to have a little more of a highway gear on the KLR. Doesn't have that. This one does, though. You have 6 speeds on this one. One more thing I want to point out on both these bikes before I tie everything together here is I want to point out sort of luggage carrying capability. This bike from the factory has nothing. You have your toolkit in here, so you can put a wallet or something in there. It does have a little bit of space in there, and that's kind of stuck on there. But one thing worth pointing out is if we zoom in down below here, let's see if I can get the cameras to do there. Those 2 little posts right there, I'll put my hand behind one so you can see. So this little post and this little post. You do have an area there to do that old-fashioned tie down of like a bungee net or something else there. So you do have the ability to either put a rack on there or just strap down on the plastic / seat area with some tie down. So there is some practicality here, but I wouldn't call it a touring bike without a lot of accessories. Like I said, the accessories you have to get is some sort of rack. You can get some soft luggage for these. You'd want a bigger fuel tank. You'd maybe want a more comfortable seat. And at that point, you're going to be above the price of the KLR. Let's just show you the same view on the KLR, see what it comes with standard. So before we point to the obvious stuff on the KLR, let me point to the less obvious stuff. And I showed you those 2 little posts on the KLX because the KLR has the same thing. They're painted black on this one, so it's a little easier to see on the other one, but you can see there's one here and there's one just off the camera shot back there. Let's come out to the full wide or full standard view here. As far as toolkits, the KLR also has a toolkit. It's in the exact same spot as the KLX. The difference is this one's stuck behind a locked area. So again, leaving this bike as it is, the ignition key will work in there, and underneath there is a toolkit. You can also put some papers in there if you wanted to, so you've got the ability to put stuff down there. Now, speaking of toolkit, remember the windshield is adjustable with tools, so technically you could adjust it on a tour if you got your toolkit out of there and adjusted that windshield when you needed to. But most people are going to load this up with luggage and other things. And you can see this is pre-drilled for various types of luggage mounts. You can have all kinds of accessories on this. Remember, the KLR has been around for a long time. A lot of manufacturers are making accessories, and the KLR is pre-drilled for all the standard stuff. So you're going to be able to add a top box on there. You can also add side bags. Now, if you want a side lockable bags, you can just step up to the adventure model, get the Kawasaki lockable hard bags, and if you want to go from there, you can accessorize up. Now, this one can be accessorized with those, but you can just go with the full adventure model if you wanted. If you want soft bags, you've already got the rack set up to go there. One other thing worth noting is if you just stick with soft bags, maybe a normal duffel bag, it's hard to show on this angle, but this seat does not drop significantly from this rack. That's set up on purpose. So you have this, you can strap on from this rack to this rack, right across the seat, right back to here. You can stick a very large bag without going to full-on motorcycle gear, or even just a dry bag. You can strap things on the whole back side of this bike. So that's going to give you a lot of capability right out of the box. And that's one of the strengths of the KLR. So one thing I love about both of these bikes from Kawasaki is they both offer great value for what you're getting. In this bike here, you're getting a capable on-road bike with enough power to go even up to highway speed, but you maintain something that's very playful, low maintenance, easy to pick up and put down. Again, these plastic panels here, they're dirt bike style. They can take a beating. You can just pick it up and keep going. The KLX is a really strong option and a pretty good value in that segment. The KLR stands out in that it's a lot more unique in its class. Really just Suzuki makes something that competes with this, but Suzuki does not have the fairing here to make their dual sport bike into an adventure bike. And this one stands out because you not only have the comfortable seat and the luggage capability right from the factory, but you also have a little bit of a fairing here, the ability to add accessories as you go, whether it's a GPS, whether it's just some power ports, whether it's some lighting, all the crash bars you would need to protect, anything you would want to put on an adventure bike, you could put on this as time goes by, which means you don't have to spill for the adventure model of the KLR right now. This one is going to be far more playful, so you have to decide the type of adventure you want to go on. If you are like me and you've got a whole bunch of dirt all around you and roads and trails and all kinds of stuff, this thing's going to be great. This thing's going to be able to take some light jumps and other stuff. KLR, I know people have jumped it, but really this is not about taking jumps. This is about going on an adventure, finding that dirt road, finding that gravel road, finding that really poorly maintained road that's kind of a mix of both, and just going down the roads. This is a sit and enjoy dirt road tourer. This is a playful, everything kind of, great fun bike to stay closer to home with. And that's the two options you have from Kawasaki for 2025. Now, how does that compare to the competition? Well, Honda's got a couple bikes like this. I hear they've tweaked their suspension, so we're gonna figure out what those are like, compare that to this on this channel in the future. And the KLR, like I said, this class hasn't changed much. KLR is really the most advanced one in its class compared to Suzuki, but it's also a great way to get into an inexpensive adventure bike. Now, with any bike, you're gonna make compromises. The KLR is a compromise in the adventure bike class. It costs maybe a third of some of the top end bikes. It's going to also be something that's a little more authentic in its motorcycling way. And what I mean by that is, hey, it's not as refined. There's nothing perfect about it, but it does a lot of things well. And that's really where the KLR shines. This bike, great option as well. You just have to decide the types of adventures, types of tours you want to go on. If it's a day tour, it's a short bit, this thing's going to be an absolute blast to ride. If you're going for multiple days, KLR is the way to go. So there you go. There's your review of the 2025 essentially unchanged bikes. If you have questions about them, let me know. I can come back to them again and again and again. One thing I will point out is there is, right beside the camera right now, KLR Adventure. There's a KLR S. Those are 2024 models. They have slight discounts. So remember I said it's just a little over $1,000 difference between these two. You can get the KLR for closer to this 2025 price if you want that, but you got to come into Wheels and Deals, Jim Gilbert's Power Sports right now because these things are going to be selling out. Like I said, showroom's full here, so if you are looking for that KLR deal, they're here right now. And yeah, that's all I got in this one. Stay tuned. We got a whole lot more 2025 bikes coming up soon.